Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nancy, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's roundtable discussion on accelerating waste reduction and recycling strategies, innovations, and collaborations for a sustainable future. As we all know, the global waste crisis is one of the most pressing environmental challenges of our time. With the world generating over 2 billion tons of waste annually, and this number projected to increase, finding effective strategies for waste reduction and recycling is more urgent than ever. The environmental impact, coupled with the socio-economic implications, calls for innovative solutions and robust collaborations across sectors. Today, we aim to explore cutting edge strategies, share innovative solutions, and discuss the collaborative efforts needed to accelerate waste reduction and enhance recycling. We will delve into the challenges and opportunities in this field and hear from experts who are at the forefront of driving sustainable change. We are thrilled to be joined by an esteemed panel of experts who bring diverse perspectives and a wealth of experience to this discussion. Joining us today are Mr. Saket, founder and CEO at WasteLink, Mr. Yashwant, Area Director, India and Bangladesh at River Recycle, Mr. Samit Jain, Managing Director at Plus Advanced Technologies, and Mr. Rahul Chaudhary, Director at Recron Panels. I welcome you all and look forward to your valuable insights. Thank you for joining. Here's how our discussion will flow. We will start with opening remarks from each panelist, where they will share their insights on the key challenges and strategies in waste reduction and recycling. Following that, we will have a moderated discussion on specific topics. So let's get started now. Over to you, Ruchika Kumar. She is the editor at the CSR Universe and will be moderating the discussion. And Shweta Singh, our consulting editor, will be co-hosting the session.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for that lovely introduction. And for those joining us live on LinkedIn, I'm Ruchika, and I will be joined by my esteemed colleague, Dr. Shweta Singh. And we are very thrilled to be moderating today's session, today's discussion. And as Nancy mentioned, in fact, world's waste crisis is indeed a pressing issue. And if you look around, we generate a staggering amount of trash. And the impact of it on our environment is undeniable. I mean, just look around. What do we see? Overflowing landfills, open dumping areas. And added to this is the increasing throwaway culture that is, taking place in our country. And of course, there is mindless consumption. But beyond this physical mess, there's the whole issue of contamination, sewage contamination, air and water pollution. I mean, it's a domino effect with serious consequences on both our health as well as the environment. But the good news is that today we have a fantastic panel of experts representing the cutting edge of waste reduction and recycling solutions. So together we will delve into specific strategies, novel approaches and innovations, and also collaborative mechanisms that can help accelerate progress towards a sustainable future. So before we, begin on the specifics, I would like to hear from each one of our distinguished panelists on the most important or the most crucial aspect of waste management according to them and how their organizations are addressing those issues. So I would like to start with Yashwantji over here. Yashwantji, your work, in fact, River Recycle's work focuses on a unique challenge, which is cleaning up our rivers. So from that organization's perspective, what do you perceive as the most crucial aspect and challenge, and how is river recycling addressing that?
First of all, Ruchika ji and CSR Universe, thanks for inviting me here. This is a very learned panel, and for me, it's going to be a great learning experience because I believe that the biggest challenge I could foresee is that, in practice also, that biggest challenge is that we all work in silos actually. So
Yes.
coming back to what we do is our primary focus is stopping plastic getting into marine life, since river, canals, creeks, and drains, they are the biggest transporter of those floating debris actually. So if somebody says that cleaning river, because a lot of people ask me that you clean rivers, but honestly, I would like to share it here. I have not seen any river flowing in the urban areas in entire South Asia. Those are converted into the drains actually. So if I say that I'm cleaning rivers, I'm not saying the correct, the truth. Then coming back to the biggest challenge, since our primary focus is cleaning the water bodies who transport the floating debris. So biggest challenge is we don't have any kind of a study which can give you the details about what all is floating and how much it is floating actually. So we invest a lot of our money and energy into doing feasibility on what is the formation of the waste, how much it is coming, what is the frequency, and then we don't have any kind of a data available on the behavior and characteristic of those water bodies actually in terms of depth, width, and the velocity available actually. Because in urban areas, all these rivers are seasonal actually. Only the monsoon time we get the velocity where all these, debris can float. So this is the primary challenge. Then I always say that waste management is not a right term. Right term is people management actually, because it's a behavioral problem. If we, use this terminology of managing people, then we can manage four folds of this problem actually, right from production to consumption, usage, and disposal actually, because every individual is involved in this whole process actually. So we have to have a holistic approach on that. Now coming back to another thing is that I have seen that a lot of good initiatives are there, a lot of technology is available, but what happens that every solution is a solution till the time you understood the problem correctly actually. So coming back to the technology, we are not a technology rigid organization. We have got our patent and technology for river collections, but we are not very rigid. We customize that further as per the requirement of that water body. I give you one example. We started in India on Methi River, which is in Bombay. We are there in BKC. We are downstream. And why we want to be downstream? Because we want to collect whatever is that river is carrying just before it is getting into the ocean. So I have a mechanism which is, I think, one of the largest mechanism we have established anywhere in South Asia. And you can consider other, technology interventions also. And if I have to go upstream, like towards Powai or somewhere upwards, then I have to have a different mechanism on the same river actually. So that's why I always say that we have to have a right technology in use, which is based on the requirement of that surface. That is another point. And then a lot of people collect and put it on the river bank or water body, corners or. But collection, stopping, collecting, segregating is not a solution till the time you don't bring back the value into the system to make it sustainable actually. And that is the biggest problem. All the development projects, till the time you keep pumping the money, it will survive. The moment you withdraw, it will collapse actually. So you are wasting your energy, money on that. And then, we can set up a narrative that nothing can be done on this. This is the live example of Methi where a lot of interventions been done. Another thing is that community is the key success factor here actually. So if we have to reduce the waste, then we have to work on three things actually: consumption side, then collection side, and then disposal side also. So these are the few challenges where we need to work. And that's the. And then if we talk about the water bodies primarily, then there is no single authority on the rivers actually. And I've been telling this to the authorities that we should have a river regulation zone like CRZ actually, where there has to be some authority who can take care of those rivers. Because what happens that river plastic or river waste is basically everybody's problem, but nobody's responsibility actually. And that we, and if you look, municipal corporation is primarily responsible for waste management, but they don't have add-on funds for to clean the rivers actually. And then they said that it does not come in our jurisdiction, because every time they says that waste is coming from upstream, and upstream municipal corporation, they are nagarpalika or nagar parishad, they don't have capacity and resources to clean that. And I mean, downwards, these municipal corporation, they don't have priority set for the cleaning the water bodies actually. And for people, it is the most convenient and efficient way of getting rid of your waste. You throw it, it will become somebody else's problem. So
Yes.
that's in nutshell, and I'll share more, my experiences and what we are doing, how we are doing, and what is our experience on waste management in water bodies later as and when flow will start. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Rashri. That was very insightful. And we will definitely pick on the points that you had discussed in detail. But before that, like you said, that plastic waste is a big, it is one of the biggest culprits and poses a significant challenge to our environment. I would like to move to Rahul ji over here because Rikron panel's innovative approach is actually to, transform the plastic waste into construction material. So according to you, what do you see as the biggest hurdle when it comes to waste management and recycling? And how are you, how is Recron panel actually dealing with that?
Thank you, Ruchika. So for us to analyze this problem, we have to understand the value chain. It is not one single entity's or one single stakeholder's problem. It is the
Right.
entire value chain which is contributing to this issue. So while we may feel that it is the lack of collection infrastructure in countries
Hmm.
like India, where we feel that a lot of plastic waste is getting uncollected, and surely it is causing a major crisis.
Hmm.
Like she said, it's going in our river streams, our lakes and oceans and so on. So clearly that is a very very big challenge in a country like ours. uh, but there are more issues to that. For example, even if we could collect a lot of that waste plastic, let's say our efficiency of collection goes up, let's say to those of Western countries, the fundamental problem still remains that what are we going to do with that waste plastic which we've collected? It is still a carbon footprint.
Yes.
We would ideally look at fixing an end of life where we use the material as as a source of energy,
Hmm.
but that infrastructure or that consumption is still dwarfed by the immense amount of supply needed. So what do we do with that? I mean, we can have landfills, but how many landfills do we
Hmm.
looking at? So then it brings me to the next logical step. What is a technological solution? So either
Right.
we introduce materials which are commercially more viable in terms of recycling, or we find ways of consumption where we consume less and we throw even lesser material. So so then we rely on technology, and then surely policymakers have a very important role to play. A lot of policy is on paper, but enforcement is a major issue. Whether we're looking at large industries polluting, or whether we're looking at households, or the way our authorities manage this waste. So at policy level and its implementation, those are some other issues that we have to look at. But one very very important core idea, which a lot of times we oversee, is the awareness that we as
Hmm.
individuals have. So while there could be a responsible citizen who would feel that he is throwing that particular trash in the dustbin,
Hmm.
assuming that now the problem is solved and the material would get recycled or will not go enter in the river streams, for example, that is clearly not happening.
Hmm.
That lack of information to an aware person, a conscious person, or to an aware person, that is still lacking in our ecosystem. When before I got into this business, for a very long time, I assumed that all plastics are recyclable. But the unfortunate bit is a very large category of plastic is just not
Right.
non-recyclable. There is no
Right.
solution to it. So the idea is to figure out a way wherein we educate the masses, so that they understand that the problem just doesn't end there. We as a community require much wider solutions to this, and it's a collective effort. But the scale at which we are, the way we are solving this problem is to figure out a a solution where we bring in commercial value, we create enough commercial value in the ecosystem that it becomes a self-propelling system, and enough stakeholders and enough for-profit, individuals or entities, join in hands so that we categorically get rid of this issue. So what we do in turn is that, our idea is to explore commercial value in the very same plastic category, which is causing this trouble. While there are a lot of other materials like PET bottles. So India produces the largest amount of PET recycling, or per capita recycling than anywhere in the world, if my statistics are right, because there is a very sizable organized market that is looking at consumption of those recyclable PET flakes for different applications. So then that problem is taken care of. So our idea is to fix a similar solution where those categories of waste plastic which are entering our landfills and our water streams, we create a product or we create a solution which commercially adds more value, so that the entire cost of executing that operation in the value chain is taken care of, and the value generated is passed on to the different stakeholders. It could be the entities collecting them, it could be the entities like us who are manufacturing materials, it could be the entities who are selling our material, or entities who are consuming the material, and all of this has to be done in the framework of compliance. So the first idea is to present a product which saves the cost of the consumer, gives a better functionality. So then you've got a very 100% viable solution. Then the solution has to be scalable. If we're not looking at scale, then we're not looking at solving this issue. And the third most important bit is that all of this has to be done within a framework of compliance. So larger organizations, which are a very important driving force, whether large brands, consumer brands who are producing a lot of waste plastic, they are again looking at compliance. They should be a stakeholder in terms of them getting rewarded for that compliance. Or it is large construction companies or infra companies which are at the forefront of so much of carbon emissions, they get compliance. Or a larger, wider corporate body which is looking at CSR projects, they also get benefited. So those are the other form of drivers that can truly bring that kind of change. But I feel that going forward, these problems can be solved, and I think I'm very hopeful about the way things have been moving in the last decade, especially our country. But surely there is a lot that needs to be done.
Great, Rahul. Thank you so much. So the two things that are very clear to me, that the key to this problem, actually, the solution to this problem is, of course, collective endeavor, as you said, and of course, mindfulness on everyone's part in this industry, whether as a consumer or as a producer. So, moving on to Saket ji, my question to you is, your organization tackles food wastage, which is actually a major contributor of mindless consumption. So, what, according to you, is the most important, thing that we should tackle, and how is your organization, Wasteling, actually working around that? So, if you could shed some light on the yeah.
Thank you very much, Ruchika and Shweta, for inviting me here today. I think it's a very important topic that we are talking about, and I'm delighted to be able to share this stage with many esteemed panelists. When it, I think you asked a very, very important, very correctly framed question, which is like food waste is perhaps the biggest example of mindless wasting, right? I mean, food waste is a problem that shouldn't exist. But the reality is that by volumes, food waste far exceeds any other waste category. India wastes every year 150 million metric tons of food. To give you an example, the recent report that came out by UNEP on the different contributions of food waste on climate, they they looked at global numbers also, and they said that actually the world is wasting enough food today that can feed all the hungry people. So technically, we should not have global hunger, given how much food that we waste.
Hmm.
But sadly, the structure of our forward-moving economy, or what you call as, very, very straight economy, is that, we've invested heavily in growing, we've invested heavily in production, and, we've invested heavily in retailing it. But we've not really invested in any of the infrastructure that is in the middle of it, which is, how do you transport it, how do you store it, and we've also not invested anything in the treatment of the food waste. And food waste, by its category, is one of the largest contributors to climate change. So 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from food waste, right? So if you're talking about, I mean, in my personal experience, I mean, I've been kind of actively involved to do various things around food waste for over a decade. And really, I think it comes down to the fact that, the three parts of the problem. There is generation, there is consumption, and there is the treatment, right? Now, in when it comes to generation, most of our economy in India today is being quite heavily invested in improving agricultural productivity, right? So
Right.
the goal has been to produce more and get more per capita out of our farms. But we have actually very poorly invested in what to do with all those grains that you produce, right? So very frequently you will find news coming out of India in many cases, in some region in Bihar, X million tons of crop got wasted, right? Or you have fresh produce that comes to the mini that got wasted. So they just take sheer amount of food that just gets wasted. Excellent food that is supposed to be sold for human consumption is wasted before it even comes for human consumption, right? So we are very poorly invested as a country in collection and transportation and cold storage of many of these products. Then when you talk about, kind of the manufacturing part of it, which is essentially food manufacturing, I also take into account, when I say manufacturing, what happens at a household level when we are buying food and we're selling food. There's a lot of, kind of picking and choosing in what kind of food we want to use and not use, right? So for example, even if it's a food company, many food companies that we work with, food is rejected because it doesn't meet certain quality norms, right? Now, those quality norms have really nothing to do with the quality of the food. They actually have to do with, the flavor, or whether it's extra fried or under fried or over, it just broke in transit, or there was a packet burst. Various causes that it just does not meet the customer mindset of what they expect when they pick up that packet of a biscuit or an atta, right? And that is a big contributor to food waste. And largely is treatment. So whenever you have all this food waste that is generated in India, where does it end up today, right? We have like sub 20 waste to energy plants across India. And most of these are kind of in bigger cities. 4 of them are in Delhi itself. Everything else is ending up in landfills, right? And landfills are the biggest source of methane. All this food is the biggest source of methane. So as a country, we have not really looked at food waste, any form of policy solution to food waste. It's been largely driven by, do the right thing, more of behavioral issues rather than any policy issue. And there's been, unlike, anything you do with plastics or electronics, where we've seen significant policy work happening, right? Food has largely been ignored. And this is reflected in many of the conversations that I've had through my journey, both in the government, in the industry. People just think like food is biodegradable, it'll disappear, right? But how it's going to disappear and what impact is going to leave on the environment, they don't take into account. They think that, food, if it's plastic, on the other hand, is going to stay in our society for thousands of years. So we have to do something about it, right? I mean, of course you do, but you also have to solve for climate change, and food waste is a 10% contributor to climate change. So there are these big policy gaps, I find, when you think about waste management, planning, so to say, that have just not taken into account, in my view, the correct, the entire aspects of managing the waste per se. They've been very, very focused, like very band-aid kind of solutions to problems, not really comprehensive.
Thank you, Sakiji. Very rightly said. And I think more than wastage is one critical aspect which I can think of is preventing waste in the first place. So moving with that in mind to Mr. Samit Jain over here from Plus Advanced Technologies. My question to you is the same. because plus advanced technologies actually focuses on material science and it tries to reduce waste. So could you please share your point of view, your perspective on the most crucial challenge that you face and how your organization is actually helping address that? You're on mute, sir.
Sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Ruchika, and pleasure to be here along with all of you. I think as everyone before me, Rahul, Saket just now, and Yash also mentioned, it's a twofold problem. It's consumption generation, but at the same time, as a country, I think we need to start focusing and moving away from CSR that we are really focusing on a lot now, corporate social responsibility to individual social responsibility. I think if each one of us uh, look at things individually and see what is it that I can do today to reduce. It's like the saying that goes in Hindi, boon boon karke ghada bharta hai. So it's like if each one of us wastes one less piece of paper today, we would have saved 1 billion pieces of paper, right? So it's almost like that, and I think that concept needs to come in.
Right.
And the corporates really need to begin to design for the environment and not design for convenience or design for marketing. Very simple things can be done, which include, for example, any FMCG company today, and we all know that we pick up a Diwali pack or we pick up a pack for of chocolates for a birthday gift. You will find 4 chocolates in a box which is twice that size. You can immediately reduce 50% of packaging waste that we are talking about if the design for environment becomes a mandate in some form. So policy changes and also individual responsibility, again, going back to that saying that you borrowed the earth from your children and not inherited it from your parents, right? So we need to think of it from that angle, and a lot of these problems can be solved. We had it in India. India, by nature, all our festivals, we are probably the only country or the religion in the world where all our festivals are linked to environment. There's something behind it. We talk about animal rights. We always believed in praying for animals. We pray to every animal. So it's something that we have lost over the last hundreds of years, and we could bring it back very easily. So moving from that, coming to where we play a role is materials. So a lot of technology today is around for handling all the waste that, let's say, Rahul and Saket were talking about. So how can materials play a role there? So when you talk of food loss or food waste, I would actually use the word loss, Saket. We don't waste as much food as much as we lose in terms of the waste really is by America and Europe. You'll see people ordering food and throwing half of it away. In India, we lose a lot of food, and as Saket was mentioning, we are not looking at cold chain solutions at all. We are a hot country, and that's where one of our materials comes in. We make these materials for storing energy or storing heat and cold. Right. So in India today, we have deployed cold rooms at the grassroots level, small cold rooms, 5 metric tons. Most of the cold storages that exist in India are the ones for potatoes. That's it. Potatoes and onions have storages, but we don't have storage for fresh fruits and vegetables, which essentially, when the farmer harvests, he's harvesting, let's say, a ton of food or 500 kilos or large amounts, which he's not able to sell the same day. And he therefore either sells it at a lower value and therefore loses money, or it just spoils over a day or two, and therefore he's not able to sell it. It just goes waste.
Right.
So can I provide a fridge like system at the doorstep of the farmer, which allows him to store that produce for 2 or 3 or 4 days without having to just throw it away? So those are the kind of solutions, cold rooms, which we have installed. They're small ones, 5 metric ton, 10 metric ton capacities, where the cold is provided by the solar energy. So we use the solar energy to generate cold when the sun is available, and we store that cold in our materials. You don't need to use a lithium ion battery or a lead acid battery at night to run the air conditioner. The air conditioner will run during the daytime, generate the cold, and that extra cold can be stored in our materials, and that material will give back the cold when there is no sun. So in simple words, we are storing thermal energy. And the same technology can be used in, let's say, trucks, which need to move around, take the food from the farm and take it to the mandis or wherever the shops, etc., where you want to take it. And instead of using petrol to, let's say, generate the coal when the truck is running, we have these materials which can be again charged using electricity. So electricity is better than burning fuel, because it's considered a cleaner form, and as and when you generate more renewable energy, the electricity gets even cleaner. So those kind of materials are what we do, storing heat and cold to enable uh, the coal being available throughout 24 hours without the use of any fossil fuels. So that's one kind of materials that we are working on. The other thing that we're working on are materials for recycling of plastics. So as we all know, multi-layer plastics is the biggest solution. You pick a pack of chips, you may think it's just, 100 microns of plastics, but it's got aluminum, it's got ink, it's got adhesives, it's got plastics of different kinds, and it probably even has a paper layer on it or a wax coating inside. So you're talking of multi-layered films, and these cannot be recycled very easily. So you need an additive. That is what we make, which are coupling agents. So they are compatibilizers. They are able to compatibilize different forms of plastics together so that they can blend and mix with each other, and you can create another product out of it. So those are the kind of material technologies that we are doing. But I think the bottom line really becomes that, do I need multi-layer everywhere? Like we tell our children, right? Don't wrap the book in a gift paper. Maybe just use a newspaper, wrap it, read something on it, and do it, right? So a lot of the waste can be reduced if we focus on designing for environment, as I strongly believe, and not designing for convenience.
Absolutely right. I completely agree with you that design and packaging is actually one of the solutions, key solutions. And we'll be talking about other innovative strategies that all of you have, at your organizations. But before that, I think Shweta has a question.
Actually, I had questions for everyone, but this has actually been one of the most enriching opening sessions that we've had. And we already have questions coming in from our LinkedIn Live audience. So I'd just like to put out an open question. This is from Nihal Kumar. He's an assistant editor at Metro Rail News. So basically, he's asking, why are people mixing bio and non-biodegradable waste? And what can be done about segregating the waste properly? If any of you have any suggestions, these could be even policy level suggestions. Those guidelines are there, but at an individual level, the segregation is very poor. So what can be done for that? It's an open question.
I can take that question because we work in that value chain quite extensively. So if you see waste collection, if we divided it at an urban level and at a rural level, so typically at an urban level, there is a vehicle that the municipality would send. And in cities like Indore, which is my hometown, the level of segregation at a household level is quite good actually. So people are very conscious of separating the wet waste and the dry waste. And it is the vehicle wherein they have two compartments where they would keep it segregated. And then that vehicle would go to an MRF where that material would be then shipped to a larger facility, a landfill, in larger vehicles which will dedicatedly carry the wet waste and the dry waste. But in reality, what happens is, even if to a very great degree of segregation at source, there is some mixing that happens. Just to give an example, a lot of wet waste that we throw is typically packed in polythene bags, for example. So there is some level of contamination there. However, in a lot of rural areas, what happens is there is no collection vehicle. If you're looking at a village or a tier 3 town, there is not necessarily a vehicle that will go household to household. People usually throw the trash in the neighborhood, and while they can deal with the organic waste, but a lot of plastic waste, for example, there is no reason but open burning is what they end up doing with it. So even at a conscious level, if as at a community level, if we decide to segregate a lot of wet waste and dry waste separately, the at an infrastructure level, a lot of mechanisms and systems have to be put in place in order for it to be a bit more efficient. And what eventually happens is, in the last leg of the journey of this waste material, when you typically go to a landfill, and we're operating in one of the landfills, uh, the large scale of organic material that typically can be utilized as compost has such high content of microplastics that the yield that one could get from utilizing those waste materials could be a lot higher. So those inefficiencies are avoided, till the last mile. But definitely, at an household level, if more people are conscious and if more people are segregating, then definitely it would lead to much wider room for the authorities and for the infrastructure to deal with that. And there could be a lot of participation from the private sector, and this is something that I see in a lot of bigger cities where a lot of NGOs and for-profit companies are looking at effective means of generating value from different organic waste and different plastic waste. So segregation definitely would help, but infrastructure is again an issue that I see.
I
Yes,
think
Yashi.
Yashi also.
You're on mute,
sir.
Yashi.
See, there is one more point actually, which is in practice. Actually, I have seen in most of the cities, what happens that you segregate at the source actually consciously. Then the guy who is coming to pick it up, he mixes it again actually, because their carts are very small, or most of the time he's in rush actually. So the most important point is that we have to do the capacity building of municipal, officials also, and then the people in the waste management who are real on the, they are deputed for collection actually. So that is very much in practice, that he's mixing up everything again, and then there is no use of segregated waste at source actually.
Shweta, I had something to add over here. I have a place in Mukteshwar. So now that place where we used to stay like 10 years back, it was a very beautiful scenic beauty all around. Now what happens is that because of the increasing number of hotels and tourism coming up, uh, people have started dumping more garbage over there. And what happens is that the collection per van, it comes only once in a week to collect it, and it's out in the open, the dump is there, and nobody's making an effort, and it's a mixed garbage. You have meat, you have food, you have paper, you have plastic. So this is actually a major problems, and I wanted to ask a question from the panelists over here, because India has a vast geography. We have hills, we have plateaus, and we have these problems of connectivity. So what could be the strategies, or if there are any strategies at your end that you are implementing, that could actually tackle this issue of giving customized solutions to the problems of waste management? Saket ji, Samit ji, Yash ji, Rahul ji, please,
So
we'd
I
like to
think,
hear your.
I mean, if I may take the lead here,
Yes, Samit ji, yes, sure.
I think in the short term, we have to acknowledge, which we are not able to realize as a country, that we have a huge responsibility given our population, and we have to do things at big scale, which is still not happening. I mean, even simple things like when we build a metro station, it is crowded within months, right? We are not able to design or make areas which are large enough. And the same thing applies for your collection mechanisms or waste treatment. The number of people employed needs to go up, and that could be a major employment generation also. Second is that in the short term, we also need to probably resort to waste to energy plants coming up to clean up the mess that the country already has. However, these waste to energy plants need to be at a smaller scale, and if we segregate too much, so it's a double-edged sword. If you segregate too much, remove all the plastics and the paper, then you may not get enough energy. So while you are educating people, and which is going to take a long time, you cannot expect the rag picker to understand the environmental problem. He does not know, he's not educated. If you
Absolutely.
tell him and you are paying him 10,000 rupees, he goes back and lives in a place which is in the middle of all the waste, right? So you will not be able to change the attitude of that person. So I think we should expect that that will happen only 10 to 15 years when education increases and the minimum wage that we have of 15,000 or 20,000 rupees across states actually becomes a minimum living wage. And that is what the developed countries have. A sweeper in the developed country, like let's say in Europe, also gets 2,500 euros a month, and the PhD fresh graduate who joins as a postdoc is also paid 2,500 euros a month. So it will take a long time for India, and we have to acknowledge that problem and look at some short-term strategies like waste to energy. Forget segregation. Ensure that those waste to energy plants run. They run at high temperatures so that you convert it into carbon dioxide and not into other poisonous gases.
Right, right.
Right. So all of that needs to be done in the short term at the policy level, while you're educating and getting to a developed nation status where you can expect everyone to
Yes,
understand the importance of segregation.
yes,
So
absolutely.
it's going to be a big challenge there.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think, in my view, uh, there is a lot of opportunity in waste, right? Given that India has such few, upcycling technologies that have been put in, there is humongous opportunity. Now, like to share with you a small example, right? Like you mentioned about kind of geography wide, like how do you tackle this problem? We're very familiar with this issue that happens every year with Parali in North India, right? Now, we also know there's an issue that started. I mean, this Parali has been there since forever, but a recent policy change that happened in how groundwater has to be used led to a shortening of the crop cycle, and they resorted to a lot of that burning. Historically, a lot of this parali was a great source of input for animal feed, right? But as the as Punjab has grown, more and more people have kind of are moving slightly away from dairy farming and moving to some of the other economic segments. They're coming to Delhi, or going into IT. Their kids are not really going into dairy farming, so the per capita availability of animals is actually going down. So you are actually increasing your farm output, but all this waste that was actually being used for animal feeding is now in surplus, and you also have a policy change in place which is causing for you to resort to burning of it. So it's a problem that can be fixed by putting in place a right kind of collection transportation system, where you can bring in some of this material and work with feed plants who are already using high fibrous material to use this in animal feed. And I think the biggest way, kind of the most critical way to solve this problem is to share value, right? To create value and share value, right? I think wherever you see that waste is treated as somebody else's problem, it's usually people are paying for it, right? Wherever you see that people are actually getting, whether it's a rupee or a 50 paisa, it doesn't matter, but wherever you're able to generate that value and able to share with them, it dramatically changes the behavior. We work in food waste, and I'm sorry, I was not able to give an introduction to my organization. So we are a food waste upcycling company. We work with many of the food manufacturers branded food manufacturer across India, and we convert all of the surplus and residues that comes from their food chain into input that go into animal feed. So we prepare animal feed ingredients at 4 of our factories across India. And one of the earliest learning was that for many of our food suppliers, they were actually paying to get rid of all of their surplus food, right? So their behavior was that, okay, there is food with plastic because it's packaged. So you just put it all together and you send it to a landfill, and that's it. So when we came into the picture, we were like, hey, you know what? This actually has value because it is a source of energy, and the energy value of that food is actually equivalent to that of corn. In many cases, exceeds that of corn. So you can actually use it as an input to animal feed, and we can actually pay you a reasonable size value for it. They were very happy. They were like, well, what can you pay us? Like, even if it's a rupee, great, start, right? And that was enough for us to incentivize them to do some basic segregation, to incentivize them to store their plastic separately. So you can actually, I mean, I know that everywhere you can't build economic incentive, and that's kind of where you need to have more kind of collective treatment options. But wherever you can build incentive, you should. And that allows this problem to be tackled, more easily, and doesn't put a lot of burden on the government also.
That was very important suggestion, because we need to incentivize people so that they can take that kind of initiative and take that kind of interest. My question actually, the next question was around the cost and scale of the initiatives, because all of you have wonderful solutions to the problem of waste and managing waste. But and I think people would be open to adopting them as well. But I'm sure that one of the biggest probably impediments is cost. For example, Rahulji, you work on plastic waste and you convert it into or construction materials. So how cost effective are your solutions when we talk about a commercial level implementation of your solution? And I want each one of you to answer in your own way that how cost effective are your solutions, or how can they be made more cost effective?
No, absolutely. This is definitely the most important question, because the biggest driver, like we were discussing previously, has to be the commercial incentive. So like when we started this company, one of the very biggest competitor of our product is plywood. So we replaced a lot of plywood in so many applications. And when we started doing business, we did not reach out to larger corporates for their applications, but we started working with the retail level customer. And one of the segments that we work with is brick manufacturers. So as it would happen that to manufacture a lot of bricks, especially fly ash bricks or paver blocks, you have to cure those bricks out in the open sun. And we would have seen those manufacturing units on the suburbs or on the highways in the rural areas, where you have thousands of bricks out in the open which are getting cured in the sun. So that is a 3-4 day long process, wherein to store those bricks, they cannot keep it on the ground. They have to use a lot of plywood as a material, and that plywood material is used typically for a year or so, couple of years. And what happens is, because it's an outdoor environment, because there is a lot of moisture, water, termites. So the life of that plywood is typically 2 years. So when we started introducing our product in this particular segment, we beat the price of the plywood. So our product was 10% cheaper. So the adoption could come in very easily. But what made more sense to the consumer was the fact that a plywood product would do 1 to 2 years. Our product could do 6 to 8 years of a life cycle. So for a small enterprise which would invest a few lakh rupees in that asset of keeping certain pieces of 1,000 pieces of plywood for manufacturing, so their investment for 2 years could do away with 6 years of return. And on top of it, because we're a recyclable product, we said that after 5 years, 6 years, or whenever you're done with the plywood, and when it is not fit for use, you can sell it back to us, and we'll actually pay you 20%, 25% of the invoice value as a scrap. So that made great sense for a consumer, and I'm talking about a consumer at a household retail level. Similarly, when we do a lot of kitchen furniture projects or housing residential projects or furniture projects for hospitals, schools, and offices. The biggest challenge would be water absorption and termites. So now we are doing a lot of projects around kitchen, and we're working with large brands also, where they launch a series of waterproof kitchens. So the biggest problem in a kitchen is water absorption, and then it would lead to cockroaches and termites, and then people spending every 1 to 2 years on a good sum of money. So the idea is to introduce a product which is absolutely waterproof for the same price, and which is also aesthetically appealing. So those are the drivers that absolutely have to make sense. And what we were also discussing previously about cold storage, with what Samitji was saying, cold storage, reefer van manufacturers, the cold storage vehicles that we see, some of the largest companies in India that manufacture these cold storage vehicles are our customers. And when you want to make that cabin, which has to be a very well insulated cabin, which can retain a lot of temperature, and also the weight of the cabin is very important. So when we started supplying material to these customers, they could, one, replace a plywood, which was a structural component on the interiors of the cabin. And to prevent moisture from damaging the plywood, they had to use an FRP, which again is a cost. So when I supply my material, I am able to replace both the product, because it solves the functional problem, functional solution of a plywood, but it is water absorption free, so you don't require any FRP. So one product could solve for two applications, and it also reduces the weight of the van. So and so when you have solution which makes sense at a budget level and at a life cycle level, then it is a quick adopter. And on top of it, if you can provide a lot of compliance and sustainability, which not only corporates are concerned, but even consumers at an individual level are also very aware of, and they also appreciate and they also demand such solutions. So we've done a lot of projects for customers where they are proud to tell everyone that the wardrobes or the beds they've made are actually made from recycled plastic. So there is that element of pride that is naturally invoked by using such materials. So that is the third angle. So that also is a driver along with the commercial viability. But in my way, in my opinion, this is the only way to address a problem of this magnitude, at that scale. So that is a very important aspect.
I'd like to ask the same question to each one of you. So anyone who wants to respond first, that how can your solutions be made more scalable? Yeah, Saket.
I think I'm completely agree with Rahul's point. I think economic incentive is very important to the success of a recycled product. Now, the kind of which basically comes down to price to value, right? Most people expect that essentially, if you're making a recycled commodity, it's going in to replace or be used in a product that has been manufactured with certain other ingredients, right? Typically, let's say fresh raw material in a certain way. Now, if you're giving an input as a recycled commodity, many people would expect that it should be cheaper than going and buying like fresh iron and recycled iron. There should be a reasonable price differential. I think the beauty is that when you work in the recycling industry, the nature of the problem allows you to be able to source cheap and also kind of pass on that benefit to your customer, right? Now, in our world, in our experience, I had started almost a decade ago. I used to sell composting machines, and if any of you have been aware of composting machine, they've been very unsuccessful in treating food waste. Not because the technology is bad, but the capital expense required to run it, and then you have to feed the material, and then it's a individual responsibility, has been not very taken off at all, right? The other problem with composting machine is that it treats good food and bad food in the same way. So if you take food which is actually nutritious, fresh, can be used to even feed animals is being destroyed and made into fertilizer that sells for 2 or 3 rupees, right? So it actually destroys value in food which is good as well as food which is bad, right? So therefore, the economic incentive over there is not aligned with the supplier. You know, a supplier believes that their food is good, you know, and they believe that the food is good enough for humans. It's just unfortunate that it's overfried or it's, you know, incorrectly packaged or there's a back burst. And if you go to a composting, you know, upcycler and you say, hey, I'm going to pay you $2 on it, you know, the supplier is not going to be very excited by it, right? So kind of pricing to value and rather your technology being able to create a product which can give the right value to the supplier and then also to your demand to your buyer, right? If it's an input to somebody's finished product, if they have a little bit of a kicker that comes in a form of a cheaper price, amazing. I mean, we do that very actively. You know, our supply are all food manufacturers for whom we are solving a service problem because this is waste, you know, kind of, let's say, surplus or waste for them. So their priority is, you know, clear it as fast as possible because we are a food factory, right? On the demand side, it's feed manufacturers who are manufacturing feed that goes into, you know, for animal feeding. So they are actually benchmarking us with commodity prices, right? So they want us to be a rupee or two cheaper, and we are able to do that by kind of sharing the same costs with our food suppliers. So it is just aligned the whole incentive so well that you can then scale the business without having to constantly ask for, you know, justification of your price.
Yashi, would you like to go next? You're on mute.
Mute.
Yeah, sorry. See, I second my thought with Rahulji and Saketji, but I would like to complement their thought with our experience and approach actually. See, River Recycle tagline is cleaning river as a free service actually. That means we don't bring any monetary burden on the authorities. And why is it so? Is that we know that, you know, most of the river authorities or authorities, their main focus on, you know, cleaning COD and BOD actually, because they want to use that water actually. And cleaning floating debris is not their priority even because they don't have that kind of a funds available. So, but this means we are not for profit organization, we are purely a commercial organization. So sustainability is an integral part of our ecosystem. So what we do is we collect, clean, segregate, recycle, but at the same time we work on the preventive care of that water body by engaging with the community, collection, stopping leakages and all these things. So what happens that you know if we talk about plastic recycling, we are somewhere around 8% only in India. So, and why is it so? 50% it is because there is no market linkages. So I tell you, you know, when we talk about incentivizing the industry, I am always against giving subsidies or some, you know, exemption and all. But government can incentivize this industry by, I give you a live example. If they can come out with a policy, like municipal corporation has got n number of parks and bus stops in that city, they can come out with a, you know, resolution where they can say that 20% of these has to be made from the recycled plastic material. Then there is a business. If you look at our, you know, railway stations and platforms, a lot of furniture and the chaos can be made out of this. So these are the incentives government can give us in terms of the market linkages very easily. There is no problem at all actually. So we need to encourage the industry in that because the, you know, virgin raw material plastic and recycled raw material plastic has got a lot of quality issues, color issues, and there are a lot of technical issues. At the same time, I talk about, you know, since we are into this cleaning water bodies, then waste which we collect is primarily the low value plastic and it is badly contaminated. So this is the place where we need a lot of technological intervention to pre-process that actually. And, you know, that is one place where we need support from policy and the CSR also. And looking at CSR, you know, CSR has to come out from the conventional approach for, you know, choosing the project. They can do their own need analysis and come out with this and that. say that we want this kind of holistic approach on that, where we can integrate the entire ecosystem and create more impact on that. Secondly, as Sambit ji had said, a lot of things which I agree with that. For India, if we have to get rid of the waste or any environmental issue, the tagline is back to the roots. Actually, it is as simple as that, but we need a lot of time and patience to go back to that place where we started, because waste was not the term we used to use, it was resource actually. Secondly, circularity or sustainability was, we are environmentalists by practice actually, since inception of our civilization. So that's my take on that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Samji, yes, please.
So when it comes to costs, obviously anything new, and when you're looking at newer technologies, there is that barrier that is always there in the beginning. We'll have. I'll take the example of the cold room as to illustrate what can be done. Probably is that a cold room that I'm talking of, which is, let's say, a capacity of 5 metric ton, 5,000 kgs of food that can be stored in it, would cost somewhere between 15 to 18 lakh rupees. Now, when you look at it as an individual unit cost, it's not much. It's the cost of a car today. So, but it's the importance that we give to the whole thing. And the people who need to use these cold rooms, unfortunately, are the ones who cannot afford it. So easier access to the farmers who who could easily get loans from the government, and it's not easy. Believe me, it's not easy. We tried it because they need some collateral. They may not be able to pay it back uh, as because you don't get produce and you're not using the cold room. You're not there for selling, and so it's a huge vicious cycle that we are in. However, newer business models, we have ITIs all across the country, we have government colleges all across the country, we have a huge amount of youth graduating from them. Can these universities start giving loans for small enterprises through the government, right? Where the people who graduate get a loan of 20 lakh rupees, let's say take a cold room, give it on rental to the local farmers who only have 1 acre, let's say, farmland holdings, and generate money out of it. They'll probably pay it back in 3 4 years, and then it is just free usage, because after that initial investment, there is no cost, negligible maintenance cost. So one can look at creating models of entrepreneurship at these universities, because there is no other way we can give employment to the millions of youth that we have. So we need that kind of models for most of these newer waste solutions where people cannot afford. Talking about plastics recycling, the biggest challenge is collection, and we do have materials that can enhance the mechanical properties of these recycled plastics. However, the industry needs a good source of continuous recycled or collected plastics from the streets or wherever, which then needs to be washed and used, and a lot of segregation, because there are 10 different types of plastics floating around, and that's the biggest challenge. I mean, all our clothes today is either nylon or polyester or polypropylene. They're all blends in various forms. So, and people don't know. I mean, your socks are nylon socks, your saris are nylon saris, or polyester saris, or chiffon, or all of these things. They are all plastics, and they are all mixed. So, in the short term, I strongly believe we need to look at companies that have to design so that they are not mixing different plastics where not necessary. Companies have started doing it. Earlier, you used to get a polypropylene bottle with a PVC cap. Now, why can't both things be polypropylene? So it's all drives down to cost. People are trying to see where can they save money, and therefore they introduce different things. Why stick a label of a different material on a different plastics? So all of that education the common man doesn't have. He doesn't know that even these non-woven bags you're getting today, everybody is mistaking it for cloth. and people are giving it, and it's polypropylene because we sell polypropylene flow modifiers to make those bags. So I think a lot of education is needed, and but these are not expensive. The additives that you have to use to enhance the mechanical properties of these plastics are not expensive at all. And you add them at 5% level, your cost of the end produce will only go up by 20 paisa or 10 paisa. So it is more an attitude. Automotive industries outside of India have started mandating that your car needs to have more than 20-30% recycled plastics. They are also moving towards doing away with different types of plastics in a car, and they're trying to move to polypropylene completely. So these are initiatives that the Western world is taking. There are technologies that exist there, but I think India needs to adopt those technologies at a really fast pace because availability and accessibility in India has grown so fast in the last 10 years. The education has not grown. 10 years back, we didn't have the plastics waste problem because people didn't have access to it. Today, they have the money, they are buying it, but they don't know how to throw it. So it's a very very I mean we are sitting at a brink of a disaster, especially in cities like Gurgaon where I am right now. There is just waste all around.
Okay,
Yes, sure.
Samarji. Yes. Ruchika, you can move ahead
Yes,
now.
yes.
This was my question. It took a long time, but
No problem at all. Actually, I just wanted to build up on what Yashji had discussed earlier while sharing his perspective on CSR investments. Um, I think there are some companies who might actually, feel that this kind of investment is an additional cost. So can our panelists over here elaborate on how this could be, how potentially benefit both environmentally and economically to the companies in waste management and recycling, to the businesses themselves? How can it be profitable for the businesses themselves, both environmentally and economically?
I can take my
Yes, please.
Yes. So we do work with a lot of corporates on their CSR initiatives via NGOs or via directly with them. But I've realized the faster sale is happening in cases where the alignment is much better with the corporate's objectives of their the ways of doing business. So the alignment could be in the form of they get better output in terms of their marketing, or the alignment could be there's a better outreach to their stakeholders, or the alignment could be in terms of ways that add more compliance, or more transparency in ways that the ways they manage their compliance. So I think the biggest drivers to working on a larger CSR impact project is to have a better alignment, and the better your alignment there is as a product, the adoption becomes even faster. And importantly, apart from alignment, there has to be a lot of logical sense in terms of how the economic viability of that particular project comes about. So if if we're mindful of not just greenwashing, but creating genuine social impact via of very strong medium of commercial viability, on top of it giving them very good alignment, so then those are faster means of achieving those tapping into those CSR projects that are around there. And for us, CSR is a very important area of work for us. We've done a lot of projects for in housing, for example. We did a project for a large consumer brand which wanted to deliver 200 housing projects. And the idea was to work with a company like us who would supply the building material, making that 350 square feet house, which could be erected and commissioned in a very shorter period of time. It provides for better living conditions for those stakeholders, and more importantly, the life of the product remains for a longer period. And we could also align, on top of it, with work by working with their vendors who were doing a drive or a campaign for collecting a lot of waste plastic, through their urban MRF centers, and they were
Mm.
employing a lot of manpower, waste pickers, in the process, and giving them a sizable, or a reasonable sum of money to, which could be, justified, meeting the minimum wage, and improving their livelihood, giving them the right, PPE gear. So we could, double down in terms of creating that transparency and visual impact, that so many people were employed in the process, and so many tons of waste plastics were actually removed from the environment, or entering in the landfill, and then creating a visible impact of building 200 houses, and not just a house which would not perform, or which is for a short term use, but something
Mm.
which can be viably taken up in the due process. So I think to be effective in terms of meeting social impact, that alignment is very important with their stakeholders, and that is where adoption comes. So whether
Right.
whether we're doing toilets, for example, or whether we're doing school furniture for a lot of projects or housing projects, that impact and its visibility on top of the alignment becomes very, very important. And nothing compares to adding more sense at an economically viable point of view. So those are some of the drivers that I feel, if are presented to these corporate entities,
Mm.
such adoptions can be much widely taken up. Like, for example, Yashji is doing a similar impact driven. If all the
Mm.
plastics he's collecting, if we could put those plastics in the form of school benches in 10 different schools, for a brand like Coca-Cola, which is spending a lot of money on sanitation and school
Mm.
infrastructure.
Mm. Mm.
So brands want to pick up those projects very quickly, and then you have that flow of money coming in, and even the users of those materials, those schools can replace wooden furniture,
Mm.
or and gone are the days of hardwood furniture. Back in the day, today all the wooden furniture is plywood actually.
Right.
So plywood has a much shorter life. So you extend the life of that investment for that particular school. So schools are also very happy. The same goes for toilets. So it has to make a lot of sense at an economic level for everyone,
Mm.
and that is one good way of driving with these CSR initiatives for these people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, Samitji, do you agree with that? And I all just wanted to add one question to this. If you could, share a success story of any collaboration or partnership that can, be and set an example to the industry. So if you could add that also along with your answer.
Uh, yes, I think if I can probably give an example of what was done by one of the large film making industry in India. So when you know, right, when you're making printed film for packaging for any company, there is a lot of in-house generated waste itself. The side trims of the film, or there could be a lot of wasted film that is produced, or there is excess film and you have to discard it because it's got the company's brand printed on it and you don't want it misused. So there is a substantial amount of in-house waste that every plastics film industry, for instance, generates. And this waste, as I mentioned, is a multi-layer film waste. It's got different plastics in it. This, instead of being just given away at let's say 10 rupees a kilo or 15 rupees a kilo to a kabadi wala, one can look at, these industries can look at uh, using that internally and converting it into a high-end plastic product or plastic granules, which can then be sold at a higher margin. So this is not quite CSR, but this is exactly what we did with one of the large film producers, that all their in-house plastics waste
Mm.
was converted into the core on which the film is wrapped.
Oh.
So you moved away from a paper or a cardboard core. You have a core which is in plastics, and that is strong enough for wrapping 50, 100, 200 kgs of film, whatever size of rolls you have, and it is made from the film waste that you have. And there, the color doesn't matter. So if you have multicolored films, all you do is add black color to it and it will become all black. So, so these kind of initiatives the industry can take in terms of uh, up up valuing the waste that they have and then giving it out in the market. That's one. Second, when we talk of, I mean, food, we've been talking a lot about it, which is one of the largest contribution of GHG emissions. I think it's become quite mandatory for some of the, I think the top 500 companies on the stock exchange or some such number where ESG reporting has been made mandatory, right? So they need to report what they have done. So I think it just makes common sense that these companies can look at working with farmers. A company like Nestle or Pepsi, others who buy lots of potatoes, lots of tomatoes, or anything that they produce, they could work with farmers and use that CSR opportunity to create these small business models where uh, some money is given back. You know, if as Yashji mentioned, you know, any subsidy or anything given free doesn't get taken care of eventually. So we have to give out free, but then demand something back from them probably. So some business models like that have worked out. The farmers will look at these companies with a better eye, with a better, you know, they'll have more respect towards them, and they need to work very closely with the farms and the owners there. So I think it just makes a lot of sense in terms of trying to provide employment in that village or in that taluk wherever the farms are located and they do contract farming. So those kind of opportunities do exist, I think.
Very well said. Yes, yes.
Ruchika ji, yeah.
Hanji.
See, we have two primary customer in our ecosystem. One is the municipal corporation and river authority. Second is the CSR. So there is a value proposition for the CSR and the municipal corporation also. And then there has to be sustainability. I give you an example. Our Bombay project was funded by Huhtamaki, which is a Finnish packaging company. We have done our pilot. We have submitted our report, and then now we are scaling it up based on our experiences. We are working with UK Aid. We are working with Coca-Cola Foundations. So see how we do it. And one more thing which I really want from the CSR fraternity is that when they talk about anything funding for an environment, they have to fund longer term projects actually, bare minimum three years actually.
Yes.
And what we do, we keep 6 months to 1 year for a pilot phase. And based on the pilot phase, we submit our scale up proposal for that actually. So there is a testing and trusting on that during the pilot phase. Secondly, you know, value proposition for CSR is that we cover almost 8 SDGs if you go by the SDGs. And then secondly, you know, socio-economic and environmental impact we create actually, which we analyze also. And then secondly, in our waste collection, we are doing tracking and traceability also, which is very important actually, because, you know, we get the plastic credit and this is a very robust mechanism where we have to give them the tracking and traceability. So everything is monitored, it is trackable and traceable. Secondly, coming back to the, you know, sustainability part or viability part of these kind of our ecosystem is that, as Amitji, Rahulji rightly said that, you know, giving benches to the schools or something. So we are doing these kind of a, you know, initiatives. And secondly, since municipal corporation is one of the stakeholder in every project, they don't have any problem in coming out with some kind of circular saying that, okay, all the benches in our parks would be made out of the recycled plastic. So, so market linkage is directly there actually. And Samiti, in 2026, Government of India is coming up with the same automobile law where 20% of gross weight of their, you know, entire vehicle has to be from the plastic. But I doubt that recycled plastic can match with their quality. But what we are doing is that in auto rickshaw and even in every car, there is a, you know, boot we cover with a plywood that can be replaced with plastic boards actually. So there is a huge market for that. So I don't think, only thing is that my submission is that CSR should consider long-term projects, if they are funding anything for the environmental benefits. And then secondly, they should come out with their own need analysis also. And the third party assessment is also important. And whenever we get any CSR fund, we make that CSR entity as a project manager along with the other stakeholder actually. So you don't have to bother about what is happening, and it is all digital platform. You can check anytime actually. And another thing is that when we create a value proposition for our customers, as I said, we are a for-profit entity. We cannot receive any CSR funds. So our non-profit partner is always one of the credible organization from the waste management. He carry his own experiences, his own capacity, resources, and network. I give you example. In South India, we have Green Worms. They are very renowned. Delhi, we have Indian Pollution Control Association. Bombay project, we are doing it on our own, but we are talking to some non-profit organization to handle our and that's strategically we are doing because we want to give livelihood to the local people. All the people we deploy on the river collection are from the river catchment area, which is semi-slum or slum areas actually. So it brings two kind of a value. They get the livelihood, and secondly, when they travel every day, morning and evening, people ask them what you are doing, why you are doing. That is the point when we can connect with them and say that this is why we are doing it, because of you are throwing it actually. So there is a direct connect with them actually. So that's all I would like to share.
Yes, Sakeji.
Sure. I think in our experience at WasteLink, of course, we believe CSR is one of the best sources of funding available for any environmental project that people set out to do. How you choose to fund your projects really depends on kind of what is the project's individual financial viability, and of course, who's the stakeholder, right? In our our business model and our thing, we've really not had much experience with any CSR fund. However, we work day in, day out with all of the biggest brands in India, both on the input food supplier as well as the buyer, right? So while we are not taking any kind of CSR grant from them, we are very actively involved in making them successful in terms of managing their value prop of being a better ESG partner for the society. And in our experience, kind of aligning motivations and vision is very important, right? And for some of our projects that we've launched, like I was sharing, many of the suppliers had not even thought about that waste to value is possible on the food surplus that they're generating. So sharing that opportunity with them and then leading that into reality, of course, was an amazing type of support, and that support may not have come to us in a financial term as a CSR fund, but it came to us in terms of access. It has come to us in terms of reputation that we share in the market today. So we are quite grateful to all of our brand partners and how they've supported us through various stages of the business. However, I always believe that while a lot of focus has always been there on plastics and electronics, I would really like to see a lot more being done on food and food waste and food loss. I think as a country, we are really underestimating the size of the problem that we are dealing with here. The cost that it poses both on our resources, land, labor, water, and not handling it well, then eventually poses to our future generation in terms of their susceptibility to climate change is just unbearably massive. And I think everybody should look at it through another lens and see what can they do to both reduce food loss in their value chain, or work with organizations that can help them efficiently manage food production loss in their value chain.
Thank you so much, Shweta. I think you have the next question.
I would like to add one more point.
Yes, please.
Ruchika, through you, I would like to reach out to all the CSR people that we don't run an entire operation continuity on CSR only. It is just 1 to 3 years, and then we are self-sustainable, so we can carry
That's
forward that
wonderful.
and
That's
hand over to
wonderful.
the authority.
That's wonderful. Amazing.
We actually had 2 or 3 questions, but since we're almost at the end of the our time limit, but I still have 2 major points to cover. One was community engagement, because whenever you're running a social endeavor, particularly Yash ji and Saket ji, even Samit ji, you have to involve the community, you have to gain their trust, you need a lot of behavior change to happen. So, how do you achieve that in your work? That was the first part of my question. And the second part, and probably the last part, would be if you have any, the most urgent suggestions that you have that you would like to see coming from the government, any kind of policy changes or any suggestion that you have that you feel could change the course of waste management or your industry. Okay, I hope I'm making myself clear. I'm combining 2 questions, but these 2 aspects I'd like you to give your take on. So we can start with anyone can take the lead here.
Sure, I'll take the lead.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the first, to your first question around community and engaging the community, I think, in our journey around kind of upcycling food waste has been largely driven by influencing people's behavior to think about food waste as an input raw material rather than as waste, right? And as we manufacture these ingredients using all this surplus food, we also have to do a lot of education on the demand side on the benefits of adding this to the feed that they're giving to the animals, right? So concerns around the productivity of the animal, kind of engaging them to inform them of the economic benefits that can happen in their feed by this alternative feed ingredient. So kind of a lot of education and a lot of awareness building. We've partnered with a lot of universities who did parallel research in many of these upcycled food products to kind of, because farmers, they want some expert to tell them that this is the right thing to feed. So a lot of that consensus building through various stakeholders, we practiced in order to inform the community that this is the right thing. And this was the first early years of our journey has been quite active on that front. On the other question around government and government policies, I think like I shared earlier, I think in my view, in India has not really looked at food waste or food loss at a policy level yet. There is no real law. There is no real governance around how much are you allowed to waste, right? You can really, it's actually unlimited. You can, it's your conscience really, how much you can. So in that point of view, in a country as poor as India, with so many people who go hungry and who are still living below poverty, I think you cannot have this problem, and you really need to look at how can you prevent all these resources from not going to the market, right? Or rather, prevent them from not getting wasted and actually ending up in the market. So I think I would really love to see more initiative, and many of our partners, I'm sure, are happy to be involved in sharing our experiences on what could work at the policy level around food waste.
Yes, Samitji. Yes.
No, Samitji, please.
Right. On community engagement, so there are 2 ways that we have looked at it. One, as a company itself, we have done programs which we call plastics in school. The thing is, we may say plastics is causing all the problem, but we also acknowledge that we just can't do without it today. My laptop, my phone, my toothbrush, anything that my clothes, my shoes, everything is plastics in some form. The sole of my shoes, people don't know. They talk of EVA, it's a sole which Woodlands uses or somebody uses, and it's all plastics. The phone, the insulation, my blankets, I want a ultra thin thing so that it's not heavy. I'm moving away from cotton, and I want it's a plastic of some form. So I think that education has to start in schools. It has to become mandatory for people to understand what are plastics and use it responsibly rather than not use it. So that understanding is completely lacking. That kind of a policy initiative has to be taken by the government, where when we talk of environmental science in schools, we are not linking it to our present day issues and problems and what technology is. So I think that is something that needs to be done. We do it at our own scale, at a small level, where let we educate children on what plastics are, why they are good, and why we need them, and therefore how do we use it more responsibly. And for the cold room initiatives that we have partnered with NGOs who have good community engagement skills. You form user groups within the village who try and use it, maintain it, educate the people on the fact that how to maintain it, etc. So the user group that needs to be formed is with the grassroots people. The leader has to come from there. The everything has to be there. You cannot impose it on them. You have to convince them, and then you have to ask them the final question: do you want it or you don't want it? If they don't want it, you don't give it. So the moment they want it, the ownership increases. And that typically happens with real NGOs who are working at the grassroots level, because as corporates, the kind of language and the way you bond and connect with people is different, and you need to adapt depending on the region where you're working. In terms of policy, I mentioned, I think education at the school level has to change drastically, and it has to change very fast uh, for managing waste effectively in the long run. And maybe something for the municipal corporations, they have to be penalized left, right, and center for not doing work. I mean, I think that if you are aware, Haryana declared a waste exigency in Gurgaon about a week back. So now, if the same government which was supposed to remove the waste is declaring a waste exigency, makes no sense. So you have to really, I think the laws have to become stricter. And unfortunately, we act only when the Supreme Court comes in. So for these kind of things, we need again probably Supreme Court intervention at the government level. How is the government, people who are running the corporations, penalized or punished literally for not doing their work?
Absolutely. Completely agree with you.
So,
Yes, Yashi, what do you have to say on that?
Ruchika, most of the things Samij has already said, that we have to catch them young also, because for the longer term goals, they are the best audience for us. But there are two things which we practice, and this worked out actually. One is that we need to find a connecting point with the community where we can directly connect with them. I give you example. Last year I've been invited for the boat race in Kerala. And normally I'm not the one who is a good orator or I give a speech, but they insist me. And then I started with one thing. Then I said that 94% of literacy in Kerala, God's own country, but when I look at your water body, it contradicts actually. So, and my purpose was because that was a boat race where they do it on a very large lake. So I said, and people come like, their own boats, every village comes, there is a huge audience, they have different drums and all, they are enjoying like anything. So I asked them that, is this the last boat race or last 10 boat race you want to have? Because you will not have this lake anymore actually after 10 years. So that is a connecting point. And then secondly, within the community, we have to create ambassadors actually who can communicate with the people, and then whom people can relate with actually. So and then third thing, the most important thing, since we are working on the behavior, then we need to be little more patient actually. Sometimes people say that, okay, we give you 1 year funding and you change the behavior of the people. That is not going to happen actually. So we need to have a patience. We need to have connect with the community and awareness on both the side actually, because primarily waste segregation is done by the women actually. And there is a difference actually, because we have our domestic health. They segregate at when they come to our house for work, they segregate. The same woman, when she goes back to her house, she's not doing it actually. So we have to understand those, psychological things also. So my submission is that we should engage with the community, try to connect with them, and then create some kind of ambassador. We can start with, let's say, 100 families or 100 houses, and then, even municipal corporation can come out with some kind of a, policy framework where they can give some kind of a house tax rebate to zero waste societies or something like that. Anything can be done from the government side, but it has to be. And sometimes what happens, because I walked, both public and private professional life, so understand sometimes, our voice does not reach to the policy makers also. That is very important. I give you example. EPR gives same money, same incentive to the person who is doing land-based collection in the cities, same to the guy who is doing it in the hill area, and same to the guys who are collecting from the water body. Who is collecting from the water body, there is extra cost for the technology and skilled manpower. Somebody who's collecting from the hills, he has got higher logistic cost actually. So there has to be equal representation from the industry side also, when the policy framework is basically, they are trying to frame a policy and they come out with a notification, and we should participate that. From the government side, my message to the government is that always look for an integrated solution. Don't pick up something which will basically not connecting with other problems. So they have to have a very holistic approach on the problems.
Completely agree with you. I think,
Rahulji,
yes.
would you?
Yeah, I'll keep it very brief. And I appreciate what Yashji said. I totally, second him on that. And I think, EPR is a form of a carbon tax. And I think what government should look at effectively is, reaching out to more organizations at a carbon tax level. The first part is, capturing what is the carbon footprint every entity generates.
Right,
So
right.
whether it is a large manufacturing company or a large infrastructure contracting company, that carbon footprint contribution should be mapped, and then there should, and even at an individual level, I mean, at household level, there could be means that can be explored, where as individuals we are aware of the carbon footprint that we generate, and our economy is growing at a very fast pace with such a wide base of population. So the footprint is going to exponentially grow. So there has to be more means of mapping the carbon footprint that we as individuals and as entities or as institutions generate, and there have to be means of taxing people or entities at a carbon footprint level. So I think that is one area which I foresee some activity happening, but these things, when fast tracked, would generate a surplus in terms of uh, you know uh, revenue or money for a lot of private sector entities to be a part of that social impact creation. So that's one thought I have.
Thank you.
Yes, Shweta.
I think, yes, we are at the end of our time limit, but this was an amazingly enriching
Yes.
session. And I
Completely agree.
personally got to learn a lot of things, and there were many new things that I came
Yes.
across. So thank you all for joining us and sharing your insights and inputs with us. Um, I would like this to extend a little, but we are at the LinkedIn Live session, so we have to wrap it up now. So formally, I thank you all for taking the time and sharing your insights. We covered so many issues. I mean, there were many specific things that you talked about your organizations. We talked about the general takeaways we had are also very wide. I mean, we're talking about collective endeavor and sustainable, mindful consumption, community engagement. I mean, we covered so many topics, and I'm really glad that this session came out the way it did. We will stay in touch with you, and thank you for your support. There's one more thing I'd like to add here. We are coming up with our annual conference and awards in September. We have announced the nominations for that. And during that conference, we would be having multiple sessions which would cover environment and sustainability very broadly. So we would be reaching out to you again for that. So Thanks again. Thank you once again, and see you all later.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a wonderful, insightful discussion.